And welcome back to Janky AF and Year of the Aerostar, episode number 133. Still working through our technical kinks, but we have another one here for you. Apologize, I was a little bit flustered, a little inside baseball here, trying to deal with my universal control on my computer setup. So my laptop, when I would try to move in on this Aerostar, would jump to my other monitor on my iMac, and for me this is like two separate computers that have nothing to do with each other, and so like I'm technologically just like out of my league here. So the technology giveth and the technology taketh away. But anyways, today the technology is going to giveth some joy of the Ford Aerostar. And I think we should just get right into it. Did I say this is episode 133? Hopefully I did. Great one last time, and another great one this time. It is another archive version, and this is now like sort of what could have been. You know, we have this insurance money. We potentially could buy another Aerostar. This one is gone, but I was too good not to revel in it for a little while. So, without further ado, just a little bit more ado, I apologize. Here we have a 1997 Ford Aerostar Cargo minivan, listed in Ellijay, Georgia. I believe that's Ellijay. Is that Ellijay, Georgia? Ellijay? Maybe it's a soft J. We'll go with Ellijay, Georgia. Perhaps it's Ellijay. I love how in the comments people will actually give me the correct pronunciation, specifically in the state of Ohio. Huge, wonderful Aerostar community in Ohio, and shout out to you. And they always sort of coach me on the pronunciation of different cities. So maybe there's some Georgia folk down there. I can think of one individual in particular. Shout out to, we'll just call him Sticks, whose family had two Aerostars, the second of which really got me into the Ford Aerostar. It was a dark green, extended all-wheel drive. And so anyways, perhaps he could coach me on the spelling of this city or township or pueblo, as it were. This is quite the specimen here, and I had to go to this picture, and we'll get right into it. It says the description, all it says is parts only, so that kind of gives you a clue. And of course it has the great 1234 price tag, which means, I think we talked about this last episode, that's not an actual price. If it were a price, it would be like one of the greatest bits of all time to actually sell a car for $1,234, or if you miraculously had a car that got to 123,456 miles and you could sell it and accurately list that as the mileage, that would be like a 1 in a million anomaly. Anywho, you don't see a lot from this initial shot, just that it is a cargo van. Maybe we have a little bit more information on it. Driven 300,000 miles. We don't know if that's true, but probably more accurate than 123,456. Transmission automatic, exterior white, partially accurate, and interior color gray. So let's get to the sort of big reveal here. Apologies for my not speaking coherently, and apologize again for these sort of screen grabs that we're working with here, but it's the best we could do, and I really had to document this Aerostar because it is quite fantastic. So boom. The cool thing about this Aerostar is that it has this, what I can only assume is some sort of homemade NASA livery on it, and it's just absolutely stunning, breathtaking. And you can see it's up on blocks here, which I don't even see. It looks like the rear end has been removed from this thing. Like, I don't even see any, like, you know, axles or hubs, wheel assemblies, half shafts, anything like that coming out of it. So, which is funny because on the other shot here, we do see it looks like there's at least one front right wheel. Now maybe the other front one's on there, but I don't think so, judging on this by this shot. So one has no, here's maybe a rim right here. Maybe that's a clue. This doesn't look like anything Ford to me. You know, a lot of Aerostar sleuthing could be done on this one. However, the fact that it's been lifted up on jack stands and cinder blocks back here with oh, that was a funny thing the computer just did. the rear bumper is somewhat preserved, and again, bumpers are, basically unobtainium in the Aerostar community, and the fact that this one is a cargo bumper with the, little recess cut in there for your hinges, for your barn doors, makes it especially rare and difficult to find. So, again, might be worth it to buy this vehicle just for the bumper alone and all the parts you could salvage off of it, the barn doors, etc., etc. But again, as we zoom in on it here, and I love all the just dirty grime and patina that's sort of gone on this one. It's like a spaceship, crashed in the woods somewhere, and hopefully everybody escaped, and now here it is. But I couldn't pass it up because I think it's so cool. The effort they put into this. Presumably it was a white Aerostar, white cargo Aerostar. That would make sense. And they added the blue, but not just this great stripe, which I think they did very well along the contour of the body line. A lot of times, the factory Aerostar two-tones, the two-tone would be down here. Sometimes you'd get a tritone, and then this area was sort of utilized. But this natural curve of the front fender is one of the only real outstanding curves, at least in terms of body panel creases in the Aerostar. So I think it's so cool to show it off because it really is just a wonderful line there. And they went so far as to paint this little, not only your mirror, but then this little sort of section of your window door opening, and that also got painted blue. And it looks like we have some wonderful rain guards here in case it's raining in outer space. And just a fantastic, I don't know, you can tell it looks like there's a little bit of, tiny bit of variation in that line here. It's got to be a DIY job. The NASA logo, I'm not sure if that was vinyl. I doubt it was hand painted, but it could have been. But I love the logo. I love the simplicity of it. I feel like the NASA logo has become kind of a fashion statement. Maybe that's a little 2018, 2020, and maybe it's already faded away into obscurity like all fashion trends do. But for a while you saw a lot of NASA gear, and it was kind of a cool thing. I've always thought the space program was very cool. Growing up watching movies like The Right Stuff and, Apollo 13, things of that nature. You couldn't help but, the couple generations before me, just be sort of entranced by the idea of space travel. Here we have a little better shot of this blue that they ended up painting. Although it's funny because this mirror is actually white, and it is like sort of a cargo with a window, and then we see the more busy NASA logo here, so they kind of put a different one on each side, which I absolutely love. You see a little bit of overspray on the door here on your inside hinge of your barn door. They didn't go so far as to paint that blue. That's okay. I just think that whoever did this, and I will say I love how the grill is also painted white. So when this thing was all, you see a little, it looks like maybe they had another Aerostar and they salvaged your little headlight bezel here. You can see this little amber light sticking out. I had to deal with this recently when I sort of semi-reconstructed my 1993 Aerostar Sport. And, there's been some pieces removed here, the leaves and building up. It's it is truly a 4 parts only car at this point. Probably, anything's possible. But for the amount of money you would put into this thing to get it, functioning and moving up and down the road again. And you can see some paint has started to chip off here. Probably not the highest quality of paint jobs, but definitely a Janky do Thanky. And I was just going to say, whoever did this, kind of got it. Maybe it was just dumb luck that they happened to paint an Aerostar in a NASA livery, but to be honest, and I do like the 97 cargo van, the simplicity of the lack of amber in your taillights works kind of well with a cargo, and also the red, white, and blue livery without the amber in there just adds to the red, white, and blueness of it. Now we have some more NASA stickers on the back, so either they were just a huge NASA buff and then they just happened to have a Ford Aerostar, also looks good with the blue Ford oval here, or they had an Aerostar and they said, well, I'm going to NASAfy this because it's just like the right thing to do to an Aerostar, which I completely co-sign. Or perhaps it was a little bit of both. We do see a nice little trailer hitch down there. So with a cargo van, towing stuff, you got really the ultimate sort of work vehicle Aerostar here. I do like the black sort of, glass coloration within the barn doors. I'm not sure if they were all like that. And it's the great thing about Aerostar. I pick up little visual cues every single time I look at them, and I haven't looked at that many cargos. And a lot of cargos don't have the windows in the rear. A lot of cargos just a sheet metal, the whole entire panel. So the windows on the cargo, and again with your sort of half window on this side, sort of a very, very cool look. I bet it's a little bit of both, and it's too bad that this vehicle has gone so far downhill and returned from orbit, as it were, because I just think obviously they put some time into this, painting it and putting the logos and the decals on and all that. And there's a great, if I can find it on the internet, I think there's like sort of a Burning Man spaceshipified Aerostar that really had a lot of work put into it, and that is very, very cool. But I always wondered why there wasn't, they did the Eddie Bauer edition, of course. If the Aerostar had come 20 or 30 years later, I can totally see with all the sort of brand collaborations that go on nowadays, I could totally see them doing a NASA version of the Aerostar, being that its whole ad campaign borrowed heavily from the space shuttle and all that. Now, that's a good question too, is whether any of that was ever actually sanctioned, or, did Ford license the likeness of the space shuttle in its advertisements? Presumably yes, but then again, maybe intellectual property laws were not as advanced as they are now, so maybe they just straight up lifted that footage to make their little Aerostar advertisement. If you haven't seen it, and perhaps we'll just have to drop it in here.
Ever since man invented machines to move people, he has sought new ways to defeat the wind's resistance. And now there's a totally new aerodynamic design for this age. Ford brings you the age of Aerostar. Aerostar, it's easy to get in, easy to drive, easy to stretch out in, easy to handle, easy to park. Aerostar, it just makes life a little easier. Aerostar. Ford Aerostar.
The ad for the Aerostar, which featured the spaceship. There was several of them, but a couple of them were sort of, I think there was two sort of main ones when the Aerostar first came out. And it's, if you're in the Aerostar community, or, maybe not even, for me anyways, for sort of, I think if you're into the more cultural aspects of the Aerostar specifically, like some people just tinker on them and like them for what they are and the vans that they are. And those people are really amazing because they know the vehicles inside and out. They've rebuilt multiples of them or just worked on them. Or they're just vehicles, but they happen to like the model and the make and everything that it is, the product itself. But if you get into the culture and the sort of marketing and advertising surrounding it, you're probably familiar with those space shuttle advertising campaigns. Anyhow, all that is to say that I think it's just really cool that someone has, done a NASA version. I would like to see one that is sort of looks exactly like the space shuttle, with the white and black and the little decals, the American flag, and like even writing Columbia or whatever it is on the space shuttle, and making it look as close to the real thing as possible with the nose cone and everything. I think that would be really cool. And then maybe doing something really neat and, themed, space shuttle themed on the interior of the vehicle as well. But certainly I'll take this. Not a whole lot to say about it as an actual van, besides the fact that it's, pretty far gone, and it is obviously just a parts vehicle. But, cargos are still fairly rare, and to be able to find anyone, especially one that has the rear bumper on it, in terms of a practical acquisition, is very cool. And the fact that it's a 97, the last year. I really would like to see figures on how many cargo versions versus passenger versions were made year by year. But even in 97, they discontinued a lot of things. The manual transmission was gone by then. The sport package was gone by then. The transmission was upgraded to a 5-speed instead of a 4-speed automatic. So presumably that has this, or this has that. So that's kind of cool. So, and I don't know how much of a bolt-on that is. If you wanted to upgrade to the 5-speed, you could probably go into some Ford forums and find out, or ask on Facebook. That would be, in theory, cooler, although I think there was something in the transmission, the 5-speed, that was electronically controlled as opposed to not being so in the 4-speed, and therefore maybe you have some ECU issues when you're trying to swap that over. But I just couldn't pass this one up. I had to put this one into the sort of universe to continue the sort of space theme here, and it's just a real looker. And I think it's cool that someone did this NASA livery on it. And to me, it's like it's like a not an inside joke, but it's kind of like an if you know thing. Like it just makes sense to have an Aerostar that's like a NASA or space edition, because that was such a big thing. The name of the Aerostar itself connotes space, and this is what I talk about the Aerostar as being like an aspirational vehicle. Like I was just looking on eBay the other night and the Ford Aerostar logo, the font and everything about it, super 80s, but the fact that they put the profile of the Aerostar into the A in Aerostar, and then they would match cut that with the profile of the spaceship. Like a lot of kind of clever thinking went into the whole thing, and from going from an advertisement but then having the vehicle itself, maybe it's a little bit of a gimmick, but it did have a very low coefficient of drag for the time and for the type of vehicle that it was, 0.37, which by today's standards isn't great. But I think now maybe I'm just repeating hogwash here, but as I recall, it actually was better than the Fox body Mustang of the same era. So the fact that, an Aerostar would cut through the wind better than Ford's premier sports car, the pony car, the Mustang, the legendary vehicle that it is, was just kind of a cool little thing. So I find that noteworthy, and I wish there were more NASA versions of Aerostars out there, and it would be a really fun thing to build, like a NASA version. Like maybe one day, if I ever have my Aerostar museum, we can do up a NASA version of an Aerostar, or NASA being, the broader institution, but specifically like a space shuttle version of an Aerostar. So I thought that was really neat. So a bit of a shorter one today, I suppose, although, when I start talking and blathering and rambling, sometimes it can go long anyways. We'll see what the final edit looks like. But I just had to get that one out there. Thank you again for your comments on the last episode. Last one was really quite a stunner, and we had some good, some wonderful comments on that, so I'll be responding to those. I have, I guess, a little bit of a surprise that I want to do on an upcoming episode. We have so many to do. There's been quite a few that sold on Bring a Trailer recently. I would like to document those just to give you a little behind the scenes of where my Aerostar horizons are headed. And, we're still out there sort of shopping. So you never know. It's always possible. I mean, it's the dead of winter right now. It's going to be below freezing temperatures Fahrenheit pretty much every day this week. So we're in a cold spout, but it's on a day like today, a night like tonight, it's nice to sort of see this little spaceship in its sunny habitat here and just think about all the possibilities that exist in the Aerostar universe. And I guess you could say the stars have aligned in the case of this NASA Aerostar, to just put in one little pithy, silly little phrase to wrap it up here. So this has been another episode of Year of the Aerostar here on Janky AF. We very much appreciate you watching and following along and commenting and engaging, as the the computer folks say. Engagement. So there you have it. I'm so bad at wrapping these things up because I just want to talk more and more and more. And but I suppose we'll leave it there for now. We will have another one coming for you very soon. And until then, Janky do thanky.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.